This is how I envision playing your way into success. I feel like it has like 3 steps. Okay. And I feel like the first one is process of elimination.
Okay.
Removing things from your life. I feel like the second thing is exploring. Obviously, because I feel like it's hard to explore when you have the weights on you, when you have the baggage. And then I feel like the third thing is it's like the pre-exploit. It's like picking something and sticking with it and being consistent. Committing. Yeah. If I were to package up what we've done and what someone who wants to start playing and making more room for that in their lives, like, okay, it's like 1, 2, 3. Let's get into it.
So it's playing your way to success in 3 easy steps.
Are we fucking copywriters or something?
So it's quit, explore, commit.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you give us an example or something?
So let's start with number 1, quitting. It's almost like I always say this too, like quit your way to success, because a lot of times, like from birth to where you are now, you have accumulated so much baggage from people and from society. And a lot of spiritual people say this too. It's another way to put it. It's like you are basically, when you're finding yourself, you're not looking elsewhere. You're looking inside. You're looking more internal. Yeah. And I think that's because you accumulate so much baggage. This is a whole other topic, but we're going with the basis that your thoughts are not yours. Like you accumulate a lot of that from people, what they think and what's right, what's wrong. Like you can't just trust every thought that comes to your mind because it's a lot of learned stuff. And so I think quitting is actively like taking inventory of your brain and choosing the thoughts that you want to have, choosing the things that you want, and eliminating a lot of stuff.
Yeah, just letting go of
a lot of stuff. So that could be thoughts, that could be people, maybe that could be jobs, that could be hobbies or activities or habits that just don't serve you. And I think when you're playing, you're like light as a feather. You're like kids, they don't have anything going on. They don't have bills, they don't have responsibilities. You have to be in that place to receive the flow,
So now that you framed it like that, like it just kind of made me think that I feel like my story aligns with that and resonates with that, because like after I had that LSD trip and had all the anxiety problems and
LSD trip. Shawhin took LSD when he was young.
Okay, I'll just give the quick version. So it's like I turned 18 and decided to take acid with my friends, and it was a great time until it wasn't, and then it was like it was the worst experience of my life. But then I kind of got over it, and then, or so I thought, and then 6 months later I just started getting like panic attacks every single day, and I went to a psychologist. They said I had post-traumatic stress disorder from the LSD trip. So it was just like a long road out of that. But
that was like a year too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was like 6 months was like
the thick of it.
And then slowly over time it got better and better, and then there was like milestones. So like it's been like 10 years now. So I actually wrote a blog about it if you're curious. Anyway, I feel like what that did, it kind of like partitioned my life into 2 parts. Yeah. Like before and after. And I feel like one of the things that happened is like that experience was such a shock for me, like overcoming that anxiety, like the panic attacks, that I quit so much. Like there were so many things from my past, and like so many like bad habits, or just it's hard to explain.
It's
but
like unconscious behaviors.
Yeah, it's like unconscious beliefs, unconscious behaviors that I had accumulated as a child. You know what I mean? It's like
what were some of those?
Okay, so like one habit was like sleeping with the closet light on, or like one habit was sleeping with the TV on.
Sounds like you were just scared of the monsters.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was an anxious child, and I guess it's not super surprising. It's like I was always anxious on some level, and then when I took LSD, it kind of like exploded. And I feel like it's kind of double-sided, because that anxiety can come across as like fear, but it also can be interpreted as like I just like to think. You know what I mean? Because you're kind of like always in your own head,
right?
So it's like 2 sides of it. But anyway, I feel like what that experience allowed me to do was to just, essentially it was like a blank slate. It's like starting over from scratch. Yeah. And instead of taking on personalities and beliefs based on a childhood experience, I started to rebuild myself.
Yeah, intentionally.
It's like I was 18, so it's like I had 18 years of experience.
Yeah.
And then I started to like put myself back together because I was like a complete wreck at that point.
Yeah.
But I guess I did quit. I quit a lot of things.
So
when I made that transition.
No lights on when you sleep.
Yeah.
No TV.
And then some.
You also lost 100 pounds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I quit like overeating. You know what I mean? So I started dieting. I quit living a sedentary life. So I started being more active.
I feel like you also developed like a routine.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the strongest things.
I quit being so, I don't even know how to describe
like
it.
loose.
Yeah. Well, I also like quit video games.
Yeah.
Like I quit a lot of things, but I didn't even like view it as quitting those things. I was just like so hyper focused on not being anxious and like getting rid of the panic attacks that was the only thing that was on my mind. But kind of like coming back to it, it's like I never thought of it that moment was just me quitting
a ton
so
of
much stuff.
Yeah. Honestly, I know we're talking about play as like this really fun thing, but especially as you get older, it's actually kind of a hard thing to do.
No, yeah, because it's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. And
it's
like when you're 18,
unpredictable.
Yeah, when you're 18, that's old enough to feel uncomfortable when you're playing. And at that time, you were going through something super traumatic, so I don't even think it felt like playing. But when you were starting over, you were kind of you had the freedom to create the life that you want to have, instead of just living on a default that you were already like, you know, brought up in.
Yeah.
What's funny is that I quit my jobs. I eliminated things so that I can just live. That's literally the point of this podcast and my message. And I was making it so that I'm like, no, living's not enough. I have to do something else.
Yeah.
And I had to let go of that rule. I'm literally, as of like last week, I'm like, you know,
you're still going through
I'm still going through it. But I bring that up to say, like, you also have to let go of your own personal beliefs. And like, while I was quitting my corporate job and going through freelance, there was so many things I was learning about myself and like things being aligned, and you don't have to work hard all the time. You don't have to like grind all the time. Like I do like a grind, but my grind is like editing a video for 8 hours, because that doesn't feel like grinding to me. That just feels like fun. Yeah. And I think that's the point. You want to find things that are like, that feel like fun, but to you could do it day in and day out and have a routine on it. And it doesn't even feel like a routine. It just feels like you were saying, it didn't even feel like you were like eliminating or adding. It just felt like you were like living. That's like the point.
Well, there I was just trying to survive.
Or trying to,
I wasn't even
survive.
living.
Yeah.
That was fine for my life.
Yeah.
like R. Kelly.
You have to eliminate your own constraints, whether that's like you telling yourself like, oh, I have to work a job, or I have to make a lot of money, or I have to be friends with these people, I have to get to this status or whatever. Like, you don't have to do anything. Right. That constraint is against play. When you tell yourself all of these rules, that is literally like the opposite of play. Right. Play there are no rules. There are no rules. When you're playing, you're creating rules, or like there's no set in stone rules. Yeah. But when you are giving yourself constraints, I see people say this all the time. They're like, no, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, why? Or I can't do that. And it's like, why? Question that. Why can't you? You know, why can't you be uncomfortable? Why can't you challenge yourself? Because you can't.
That's really good. Yeah, because there's always some limiting belief behind that.
Always.
I can't statement.
Always. If you're saying I can't or I won't. I watched a video from this guy who said he quit his job. He brought I knew what this was, but I didn't know there was a name for it, but he called it like I forgot. It was like called it's called the fear setting. It's like goal setting, but with fears. And you basically write down the fears that you have when you say you can't do something. So you write down like, okay, what are you afraid of? And then with those fears, you write down like, okay, how can I avoid that fear? Right. So you like make an action plan on how you can avoid that. And then after that, you say, there's something else I think you do with it. It's like, I think the other one is like, if it does happen, what will you do?
Yeah. Action plan.
Yeah. So it's like, you basically just make your anxieties into just like more plain logical statements, and you're like, oh, it's actually not that bad. It's not the end of the world if you do something and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I've heard Huberman talk about that, not like specifically about fear, but imagining failure and obstacles is something that actually helps you achieve your goals.
And then when you're anxious, people tell you like, okay, accept that.
Just imagine the worst case scenario and be okay with it. Yeah.
Just truly accept it. Because I think once you accept it, it's like, oh, it's actually not that
It's not that bad.
So it's not that bad. Like, okay, you know, if I lose my job, then I won't have money. And it's like, but your anxiety usually stops there. But then it's like, there is still life the next day after that happens. Like, okay, then you can just apply to another job, you know? And it's like, life keeps going. There's always something. Right. And I was having that anxiety too. I was like, oh my God, because I recently just let go of like my last and final client that I hope that will be my final client. And I was like, okay, well, I won't have income. And we are actively fighting just any income right now. So we're in a situation where like we don't
just
know.
Keep saying no to money.
We don't know where our next check is going to be coming from necessarily, and that's on purpose. And I was like, okay, I know I can't go to like, you know, the easy route of just being people's, you know, social media person or content person, whatever. And so I'm like, where's the next thing coming from? Especially if I'm not going to be trying to market myself as a coach and sell my services. And I was like, I don't know. And I have to just accept that. Like, I don't know. And I think that's okay, because the pain or the cost of what I hope to be my future success is just being uncomfortable for a few months and not knowing, and allowing whatever's supposed to come in, because the first step of play, in my opinion, you got to make room for it. And that's why you have to eliminate things. But then there's this room for magic, in my opinion, to happen, because that's when opportunities come in. If you're putting yourself out there, I'm not saying you just like eliminate things and sit down and do nothing, like absolutely nothing. You do need to be putting lines in the water so you have things coming to you. But I think the point is you're eliminating things that are not aligned. So you make room for more things that are aligned. So if you are not working at a job that you hate 40 hours a week, and you're spending now that 40 hours a week talking to people in, just say you want to get in health and wellness, and now you're not working at this job that you hate, that's probably like, I don't know, just like the opposite of your field. And now you're exercising more, and now you're going to gyms, and like you're talking to people who are in your space, and you're attending community events. And then all of a sudden you're talking to somebody at this community event, and they're like, oh, we actually have a position open at this health and wellness company. And you're like, how would I have ever gotten to that opportunity if I was at this job that was like the opposite of what I wanted? You know?
And it's like, there's always opportunity out there, but it's just a lack of information. We don't know. The only way to get that information is through exploring. So I feel like this is a perfect
segue into my second point. Like that's the next thing. You have to, once you eliminated things, you don't just sit there and just, you know, look at the wall. It's like, okay, you know, like what's next? Explore. But this is where the fun and the play part, I think, starts to come.